Good afternoon guys, I'm Chris and welcome back to this Wednesday's episode of Rift Amps. Just about to start doing the cabinet dressing on this Americana LP cabinet. So the chassis is already all done and ready to go, but I need to do all the small little jobs on this to get the thing ready. So this is how they arrived to me from my cabinet maker. Is just in this kind of bare form. So as you can see, so I need to do a couple of jobs today. First one is to fit drill and fit the handle, and on this particular cabinet I use what we call the large brown leather handle. On the this is the LP model, this is the lower powered one, which comes in the fawn Tolex. So we'd put a brown handle on that, and that's got gold face plates. On the normal Americana model, the higher power one, that comes in the grey tweed, and that gets the black handle. So I need to drill that. I need to drill the chassis mounting holes. I need to fit my logo badge, which again comes in two colours, depending on which model it is. So we've got a brown one, which this particular cabinet is going to have. Sits about there. And we've also got a black one as well, which is for the other model. So make sure we fit the right logo badge on there. Need to, like I said, we need to do the chassis, put the reverb tank in the bottom, and do all the wire runs for that. Need to fit the speaker, Celestian Blue, in this particular one, speaker cable, etc. And there was, oh yeah, and on the rear panel, is the information badge, which, spin you around, which goes about here. There's a little warning plate that gives you all the legal information for the amplifier. Normally, I would put that on the rear faceplate of the chassis, but because of the way these chassis sit, I'll show you. Let's get you one. Obviously, they sit kind of that way up, the controls on the top, so you can't really see any information that will be on the underside, so therefore we've put a badge on the back because it has to be easily accessible for the user to get all the information that they need. So yeah, there you go. So I'm going to crack on with this now. Take the panels off, need to heat shield as well, get my chassis, speaker, reverb tank, all the usual stuff done. These are made from Welsh pine, apart from the baffle and the P1 and P2, the rear panels, which are birch ply. Q&A time then. Loads of comments and questions, lots to get through. Well over 100 comments on the Panover video, so I'm not going to do them all. I think most of the discussion that needed to happen actually happened in the comment section. So, and I kind of gave my thoughts in the video itself. So, but I will touch on a little bit. Anyway, Tim Hall says, out of interest, what is the difference between the different colour Loctite and what is wrong with the red? Different colours indicate different strengths. So purple and green are the weakest or less strong versions. Blue is medium strength, and then red is mega strength, as you might call it. Now, red is for something that you basically it's almost permanent in how strong it is. I think if you look at the data sheet, you need, in order to break the bond, you need to use heat. Whereas with blue, you can it won't come undone unless you crack it loose with a tool. So with guitar amp stuff, what we're trying to do with any locking hardware is to make sure that nothing comes loose unless we want it to, and that's the goal, right? So that's why you use a nylock nut or a Keps nut or lock washers, because we only want that hardware and fasteners to move when we go to move them ourselves, for whatever reason that might be. We don't want it to come loose through vibration or another means. So that's why I recommend, I mean, I use blue because that's what I use in the engine building stuff as well. I just have it here, but obviously I only use a small amount. That ensures that the hardware isn't going to come loose unless I go in there with the tool and loosen it myself. But I mean, green will be fine, purple will be fine, but red, it's just too strong. And if for any reason you need to get in there to remove, you know, one of those standoffs, for example, you're going to have to use heat, and then yeah, you get yourself into a whole world of hurt if you're not careful. So that's all it is, Tim. Good question, though. Robin McMillan says, speaking of smoking, talking about the Blues Deluxe I'm still working on, finally got the 22s in stock. I was out. So anyway, they came in this morning. Speaking of smoking, went to see Ainsley Lister last night in Lincoln. He had his Ainsley Lister signature Rift amp on stage, and it was on fire, not literally. Irrespective of what guitar or pedal he used, the sound was incredible. Okay, it was Ainsley, so he has to take most of the credit. Yeah, I'll give him that. But what a great amp. You should be very proud. Do you know what? It's such a killer amp. It's such a killer amp. And I'll openly admit, I would never have got it to the point where it is now, in terms of how it plays and responds and the way the harmonics jump out and the way it blooms and all that kind of stuff, without Ainsley's input. He's just got the magic fingers. So don't tell him I said that. Yeah, all right. But yeah, no, killer amp. I love hearing it on stage. I'm going to see him live next month, because I haven't seen him play live for a while. So it'd be nice to hear the amp on stage again, cranked up. You know, those solos soaring over the audience. Looking forward to that. So, yeah. But yeah, thank you very much for the comment. I do appreciate it. It is a great amp. I do love it. I love building them. I wish I could get them out the door quicker, but they are so labour intensive to build. They take so long. But that's one of the reasons I love it, is that it's not a quick, simple amp. It's one you've got to take your time over. You've got to get every stage right. You've got to hand select your components to be, because we've learned, for example, let's say it's a 100k resistor. Well, we've learned in one position 100k isn't right, 105k is there. So I have to go through and find 105, resistors that measure 105k, because that's the one that gives us in that position to get the amp where we want it, like that fine tuning. And it's like that throughout the entire amp. There's one capacitor I know that if it's 100 picofarad away from where it should be, the amp just doesn't work, and then doesn't work how it should, and then you get it right and it just all comes together. It's so, finicky is not the right word, but it's so precise, or you have to be really precise in getting everything exactly where it wants to be, that fine tuning of just getting it there, and then it just sings. So killer amp. I love building them because it's such a challenge. Go on then, Lazy J time. Yep, so before we get started, I know a lot of you would love for me to rip into this thing and go through it and tell you what I think of it and all that kind of stuff, which I'm not going to do. I'm not going to do that because most people, most other amp techs on the internet have already done so, and most of you will have seen what these things are like inside. We all know what the issues and problems with them are. We know that they are not built to any known safety legislation in the world. Well, maybe North America, but that's not exactly strict, is it? But you know, they're not built to UK EU legislation. But I've been through all that before, etc., etc. I haven't actually had a Lazy J in the workshop for a while. I used to get them in all the time for the most common fault with them, which is a blown mains transformer. Why do the main transformers blow? Well, because they are under-spec'd for running 6L6s. Now, Lazy J knows this and fits a cooling fan to them. But it only lasts so long, and eventually you will blow your mains transformer. Now, because I was replacing so many, I used to have one, I used to keep a unit on the shelf, a replacement unit for replacing them with. Now, the Jesse says that he uses his under-spec transformer because it produces a particular sound and feel that he couldn't get with a transformer that was correctly spec'd. And you can look into that and read about that and make your own decision on that, whether you think that's right or not. But I managed to design a replacement transformer for the J20, which sounded and played exactly the same, but was perfectly capable of running 6L6s. So again, there is that. But actually, I haven't had one in for a while. So when this customer called me and said he's got a J20, it's got a couple of issues. He's only owned it for just about a month. He didn't buy it brand new. He bought it on the second-hand market. He's noticed a couple of issues with it and would like me to go through it, as I am much more local to him than Lazy J are. No problem, we'll sort this out for you. It's turned up and I'll go through what the issues are with it. That's absolutely fine, that's not a problem. And I'll explain what I found. As I usually do with this stuff, we'll give it a visual inspection and we'll get this thing fixed for him. First issue that he's having is that the dual light is flickering. Well, that's either, and he's replaced the bulb. It's a number 47 bulb, standard Fender style bulb. It's still flickering, and if you remove the dual light cover itself and you push the bulb far to one side, the bulb goes full brightness, and then we let go, it drops back down. I'll put some footage in showing you it doing that. He said, so he bought this from quite a major UK guitar shop, who will remain nameless simply because it doesn't make a difference. And he said it sounded great. I can't get this back on when he got it, but he's noticed, since he's owned it, a severe deterioration in the top end performance of the amplifier. So he says it now sounds quite muffled. You know, the classic complaint that somebody's thrown a blanket over the amp. It hasn't got that presence anymore. It's still quite loud and powerful, so it's certainly not missing in that department, but he says the top end is definitely different. Hopefully it's just a valve problem, but again, we'll go through and check everything. When he dropped it off, I powered the thing up. I will say this amp has got quite a loud noise floor, both in hum and hiss. More than I remember them having, so again we'll have to look into that, see where we are, see what's going on. But the hat that I'm putting on at the moment is service and repair. It's not amp design, So I'm not going to get into any of that unless it's warranted for the repair of this amplifier. So one thing that is interesting, this one does not have the reverb or tremolo units that are often in the back. But it's got 6L6s with a GZ34, Celestian Blue speaker, as you can see. It's got power scaling, which when we were testing it seemed to have a delay. So you turn it and then it wouldn't drop output for about half a second, then it kicked down. So that might be something that we need to investigate. All the controls seem to work well. He plays this with a Gretsch Falcon with the center block. If that makes a difference to anything, I don't know. But yeah, so that's where we are with this thing. So we need to investigate the flickering dual light, we need to investigate the noise floor on the amp, and we need to investigate why it is missing some top end. The Johnsonite says, what distance should a PCB be mounted from the chassis? I saw on some build kits that a rubber or plastic backboard, insulator board, was provided for a 5E3. Does this have any merit, or would it just be for solder drops and perhaps unshortened leads on the back of the trace or an eyelet? Well, because that's the way Fender did it, right? So they didn't mount their boards on standoffs. What they did was they used self-tapping screws to mount the boards to the chassis. But obviously there's exposed terminals on the back of a board. Here's a board, so that's what it would look like on the back side, and you can't mount that directly to a chassis, right? Because these would all short against the chassis, and the amp would quickly go up in smoke. So Fender used an insulator board, so just another piece of circuit board material with no eyelets in, and just to insulate it between the chassis. That's one way of doing it, but I don't like using that eyelet board material. I use FR4, so I mount them on standoffs away from the chassis. Now I use two sizes. I use 1/4 inch, which is the smallest size I use, so I have a 1/4 inch gap, which would be, what's 1/4 inch? Is it 6.35 millimeters? I think so. Yeah, that's right. Or I use 3/8 on some of the larger builds. Now the reason I do that is because when I've got wire runs going under the board, such as transformer wires in bundles, they're quite thick, so I like to have a bit of a clearance. But that's it. Yeah, so minimum really is 1/4 inch. But yeah, good question. Brad's Guitar Garage. Hi Brad, nice to hear from you. Hope you're well, mate. And also, Brad signed up to be a channel member, like most of you haven't done yet. So please, pull your finger out and join the channel. It would really help. Brad says, dismember getter on that EL34 from the Hiwatt. I've never seen that. Do you know what, Brad? I don't think I have either. I've seen internal parts of valves or tubes fall off before, but I don't think I've seen a getter like that before. It was a bit of a shock because it's not something you commonly see or we've ever seen, because that's what we're talking about, right? So you don't look for it, and so when you see it, you okay, what's going on there? Why has that happened? But yeah, that's got to be a manufacturing defect, right? There's nothing that would have happened in the amp that could have caused that, and there's nothing that the customer did, and there's nothing that I did, so it has to be a manufacturing defect on that valve. Sadly, those valves were purchased by the owner too long ago that the warranty on them has expired, so he's been unable to get a replacement from the supplier. Whether you think that supplier should stand behind that or not, it's well over 6 months ago, so he's not, there's no way they're going to cover that. So he has sent some others for me to fit and mix and match in the amp. But yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? I've never seen that. So yeah, well, you learn something new every day. Okay, amp is on. I've got FFT plot on the iPad on. I've got a microphone up against the speaker. I'm going to boost the audio just to make it easier for you guys to hear what's actually going on. I am screen recording the iPad, so you'll be able to see in real time what happens. I'm just going to sync it now. So all the volumes are currently at 0. The 2 volumes and the tone, and the attenuator is out of circuit, so full output here. So I'm just going to increase the bright channel volume. And the tone. And the other volume. Okay, quite noisy, but that's not like a high gain hiss. That's there is some hiss there, but kind of what you expect from a 5e3. But the low end hum, there is definitely something strange and odd going on there. Definitely a ground hum, or ground loop hum, something along those lines. So we need to check all that as well. Right, let's get the back off and have a look inside. Okay, so the amp is on, by the way, but the dual light is off. And now it's on. Now it's off. And what I found is if I just bring you down a bit, I just tug on the heater connection. Something going on there, isn't there? So we've probably just got a poor joint on the bulb holder itself. Hopefully we haven't got to replace the bulb holder, but we'll have to go through and check all of those. So whilst we're in here then, let's have a quick look, see if we see anything obvious. Just because I'm not going to comment on the build quality doesn't mean we can't do an inspection for anything that is damaged, broken, burnt, you know the rules. Okay, so power transformer side, we've got this is the power scaling. We've got a switch up here. This is all your power scaling stuff. Your mains coming through on the grommet here. We haven't got any flyback diodes on the rectifier valve socket. You're not required those for as a legal requirement, but it's interesting they're not there. And the rest of it is all pretty much standard J20. Oh, spider. Right, there you go. That's the inside of a J20. The only thing I did notice actually was, I'll try and get you down to show you, is that this is actually the J20H model, as you can see there, which is a variant that he offered because it was either higher headroom or higher power. I'm not quite, entirely sure which way he did it. But this does have a different spec mains and output transformer. Slightly beefier, so this one doesn't have a cooling fan inside it. But anyway, we're going to get this on the test bench, measure its output to make sure it's performing roughly where it needs to be, which should be, as the name suggests, around 20 watts into 8 ohms. And then something's microphonic. That one. Yeah, that's 606 there. Oh. Yeah, that's very microphonic. Okay, so could be looking at 6L6s here. Anyway, let's get it on the test bench, measure the output. Weather update. Hail. Catmandoodoo, that's a great name, says, I'm an inveterate tinkerer and was wondering what your thought would be about the difficulty in converting a Harley Benton monoprice Tube 5 clone into being a standalone reverb unit a la the Fender 6G15. Having a young family means funds are non-existent, but I do have time and the parts. A pointless exercise? Pointless? No, absolutely not. Not if you end up with the thing you want. That's the whole point, isn't it? So why would it be pointless? I don't know that chassis off the top of my head, but anything's possible. Why not? Have a go. See what you think. The only thing I would say with the 6G15s is build yourself, make sure you add in the artificial circuit ground circuit. To elevate everything, otherwise you get awful ground loops with them. But yeah, I reckon you could do it. Take your time. I mean, strip the old chassis down and then start planning. You know, following the basic rules. Audio circuits as far away from power supply circuits as possible. Shortest wire runs you can. Remember, every wire in an amplifier has the potential to be an aerial and pick up noise. So, work out, is this the shortest wire run I can do? And if not, can I route my wires as far away from the noisy bits as possible? Take your time with it. Yeah, absolutely go for it. Why not? If you've got the time and you've got the spare parts, why not have a go? I mean, what's the worst that happens? It doesn't work and you start again? All right, you learn something. Brilliant. Yeah, do it. Richard Halstead, regular commenter. Welcome back, Richard. Said, hi, Chris. Great informative video. On a number of previous videos, you have mentioned that you really can't rely on some circuit diagrams declared voltages. Yep. I think that a possible reason is down to old test equipment of the day. Yeah, that's a good point. Say in the 70s, most designers wouldn't have had a digital meter, and things like the old AV08 had a 20k ohms per volt impedance opposed to a digital impedance of, say, 20 megohms per volt. Yeah, so they really were quite low impedance devices. A shunt resistance would have had a bigger effect on any circuit and in some case stop it from working. Yeah, they really did put a load on the circuit. So what we mean by that, for anyone that's interested, is that those old voltmeters, they weren't invisible to the circuit when they were taking measurements. So they would actually put a load on the circuit and then affect the readings you got. Now, if you knew that, you could take that into account, right? Where did we get to? The availability of much cheaper test equipment in real terms has helped with our understanding of how things actually work. Some circuit diagrams of the day would declare all measurements taken with an AVO Model 8, for example. What are your thoughts? Yeah. Now, what I've discovered over the years is that, especially on some of the Fender schematics that are out there, is that, I mean, if you actually stop and think about it, it's one of the Tweed amps. I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. If you look at the voltages that are written on the schematic and the layout, and you use simple Ohm's law and Joule's law, you could see that they don't make sense. Especially if you understand, you know, like for preamp voltages, for example, you know, 1 milliamp per triode of a 12AX7 type, right? That's your standard current draw, or the typical operating point for those. Simple Ohm's law and Joule's law tells you that the voltages written on those wouldn't be possible. So, but then you get forum threads and Facebook groups of people arguing for days that if the voltage on there, if that's what's written on there, it must be correct. And you think, no, it can't be. You know, the rules of science say otherwise, right? But what I did find was that there's one amp. Is it the Bronco? Or was it the Super? I really should look this stuff up before I start answering the question, shouldn't I? But there's one where for the vintage, whenever I had one of these vintage amps in, the voltages never lined up right until I put my light bulb limiter in circuit, and then all the numbers lined up almost perfectly, almost to within a volt. And then you go, so these engineering diagrams are essentially what they are. The voltages on that schematic could just be voltages taken under test conditions, and then people have just taken those as gospel and think that that's what the amp should have. So people have been swapping power transformers out and all sorts, and building bucking transformers and bits and pieces, not realizing that those voltages were never correct. One that's interesting is the 5E3 Tweed Deluxe, because there are no voltages on the 5E3 layout and schematic, but there are on the C3 and the D3. So, and people have assumed that they're always the same. Now, so that's a great example actually, because every one vintage 5E3 as I've had in, the voltages inside them, even when run at 117 volts, obviously they're US amps, are much higher than all the internet wisdom says it should be, which always makes me laugh. The Tweed Harvard, that's what I'm thinking of, the Harvard, not the Bronco, the Harvard. So yeah, you can never take them as gospel, because unless, as you rightly said, you know what test equipment was used and under which test conditions those measurements were taken, you just don't know what's what and where's where. So don't take things as gospel, but use your brain. Joule's law, Ohm's law. Work it out yourself. It's not that complicated. So yeah, great comment, Richard. I'm glad you brought that up. On the bench, I just gave it a quick play test and can confirm, yeah, there's something not quite right with the top end. I'm not going to mic it all up to show you because I haven't quite got time today, but I do need to crack on with some other things. But I'll show you what we do. I've got the CompuBias plugged in, so you can see where these things are currently biased. So 6L6s, are they? Well, they're 5881s. No, they're 6L6s. Anode to cathode voltage around 390, 56 and 59 each side in terms of cathode current. So they're biased around 22 watts each. So quite cold for a what am I saying here? A cathode biased amplifier. Anyway, I'm driving the front end with a 1 kilohertz 150 millivolt sine wave, and I've got both the oscilloscope and the spectrum analyzer on because I want to show you the top end. But before we do any of that, let me just show you the output. So we'll put the tone on 0, and I'll just advance the volume control. You can already see there's some really strange artifacts on the output sine wave. Something's really not happy there. But if I keep driving it to the point of clipping, which, no, we've gone too far now, is, you see we're squaring off now, just back down to where it's still round, about there. We're only getting 7.5 volts into 8 ohms, which puts us, bear in mind this should be 20 watts, at 7 watts. So we're getting 7 watts clean out of this amplifier. Not good. Advance the tone control. All we get is more overdrive, which is how these things work. But if I have the tone control on 12, which is where we are now, and I just back the volume down to where it's clean, you can see, I mean, that's 6 watts there. This thing is well down on power, massively down on power. Now, you can't smell this because you're on the internet, but this thing has quite a largely, what am I trying to say? It's got a very prominent smell to it, a burning smell. Something is not happy inside this amplifier. So we're down on power. If I show you the spectrum analyzer, come on. Oh, I might have to rejig you around. Oh, we've got thunderstorms. But basically, even when it's overdriving, there's no harmonics at the top end. This thing is flat as a pancake. We've got nothing above. We've got no top end harmonics at all. There's something quite wrong with this amplifier. So no good. I mean, you can see it's overdriving. Not a healthy J20. So I need to get into this more. I might not have a solution for you by the end of this video. If not, it'll be in next on Sunday's video. Couldn't think then. But yeah, we have got one unhealthy J20 here that is noisy, is down on power, has quite a large hum, and isn't performing anywhere near as expected. And of course, as we know, the dual light is temperamental. A comment from the Panover video, Eric Adler says, amazing how a Fender amp from the 50s and 60s are still so reliable and sound so sweet. But they just don't want to build anything good today. I mean, we've been saying this for years, Eric. We've been saying this for such a long time. I mean, it's a combination of capitalism taking over, bean counters, and you've got to maximise your bottom line. There's a great example was that take the Blues Junior, the Fender Blues Junior, right? There are components in there, resistors and capacitors, we'll just start with those, for example, that are that if you were to build that thing reliably with correctly rated components, with enough headroom in them, etc., would probably cost Fender an extra $10 per unit, right? So we know they've saved at least that on those components alone, and we're assuming that, you know, this, but they're building one at a time. They're not. They're building in bulk, right? So if they're saving a minimum of $10 per unit built, and they're doing a run of 1,000, well, that's, you know, 10 grand on your bottom line. Easy. And I guarantee you, they are saving more than $10 per amp on component quality alone. So yeah, there's that. Now, it is entirely possible for them to build amps to a high standard. And I don't know why they wouldn't, really. I mean, we've used, I think I've given this example before, especially with Fender. On the guitar side of things, you can buy a Fender guitar in a wide range of different quality and price points. So you can get, you know, down the bottom, the Squier Affinity series, then you've got the Classic Vibe, which are actually, especially the Squier Classic Vibe basses are insane. That's a good tip there. Then you can go Mexican, you can go American, then you can go custom shop, then you can go master built, team built, and then master built, whatever it is. So you can buy a Strat in whatever level you want and you can afford. So why don't we do that with amps? Why don't Fender do that with amps? Why don't you have a Fender master built amp, you know, hand wired by an amp guru up there who knows what he's doing and he understands it? So why can't I buy a Princeton Reverb, a budget one, you know, that's affordable? Why don't they have a Squier Princeton Reverb? Why not? That'd be great, you know, and people would be quite happy if it was built to this kind of standard. If the price point was reflected in that, they'd sell a bucket load of them if they presented it as an affordable option, but labelled as such. Squier Princeton Reverb. Brilliant idea, right? Then you could have American-built Princeton Reverb. Then you could have custom shop Princeton Reverb, hand-wired. And by hand-wired, I mean a bloke sitting down and wiring it up. Then you could have a master craftsman version, you know, and you could charge. People would pay big money for a, and I know they do because they pay me to hand wire Princeton Reverbs properly, right? Or Princeton Reverb style amps. So the market is out there and it's entirely possible for them to do it. And then you could do deluxe reverbs, super reverbs, vibreverbs, tweed deluxes, you know, tweed basement, all of it. You could do all of that in whatever range you want. But they don't. They just offer one version. Well, one version and then one alternative version. You know, they do the black panel and the 68 custom. And they're utter shite, aren't they? Let's be honest. They're not good. They might sound good when they're new and when they're running right, but we know they don't last long. We know they're in shops more often than they're out of shops. So why just, yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. But, you know, as we've said before, it's because Fender don't do that it keeps businesses like me and some of the other good guys, it gives us a living. Great. Anyway, nice comment, Eric. Thanks. The Melter says, "Hi, Chris. Love the channel. Your comment at 12:55 is priceless, where I said, for quality, you have to pay for it and you have to wait for it." Yeah, and I stand by that. I stand by that, and I've always been happy to wait. I've currently got an acoustic guitar on order with my good friend Anthony Ryder. He's going to build me the most beautiful 12-string OM style in Koa with a spruce top. It's going to be wonderful when it's done. And do you know what I'm doing? I'm not rushing him. I haven't spoken to him and chased it and said, where is it? You know, how long do you think it's going to be? None of that, because I want him to want to build it, right? I want him to, when he gets to it on his build list, I want him to go, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to building that. I'm looking forward to building that. Chris hasn't been pushing me for it and bugging me about it and, you know, asking me loads of stupid questions all the time. And I want him to, when he's doing it and he's carving the wood and he's, you know, the neck and he's shaping all the bits and he's tuning the soundboard, I want him to want to do it and to be really enthused by it. And I'm happy to pay for that and I'm happy to wait for it. All right, and if it takes, I mean, I think I ordered that from him originally a couple of years ago. I don't know what state it's in, whether, you know, what kind of progress it has been made, but I don't care. It's done when it's done, and I know it will be good. But the minute I start bugging him all the time and chasing it and oh, have you got a lead time on it or whatever, he'll fall out of love with the project, because I know I do when people do that to me, right? So if you want the best quality, you have to wait for it, because you want the person building it to excuse the phrase, but you want them to make love to it as they're building it, right? You want to put everything into it, all the fine details. With this Ainsley Lister board, for example, I sit there and I probably take twice the amount of time that it could take me to build this board, because I want to get everything perfect, everything lined up, nice radiuses and nice solder joints and everything straight and in place, and from whatever angle you look at it from, it looks great. So that's my thing on it. And if you want to buy something quick off the shelf, go down a guitar shop and do that. But if you want something that's handcrafted, as I say again, you have to pay for it and you have to wait for it. The Melter says, it's surprising how many people in the world don't get that. Yeah, exactly. I think you've highlighted my point really well there. Keep up the great work. By the way, where is Tremolo the cat been lately? She's out there somewhere. I feed her every night, and I see her on camera munching away. So she's still around. But so the farm now doesn't is no longer a crop farm. Basically, there's not enough nitrogen in the soil for them to grow crops anymore. It's been a crop farm for years and years and years. So the farmer's turned it back into livestock. So he's got cows and sheep and pigs and chickens, and he's got a horse in the field. What else has he got? Bees. And the whole idea of that is it helps put nitrogen back into the soil, so in 15, 20 years they can do crops again. Because there's no crops, there's very little field mice, right? So we've got a situation where Tremolo the cat hasn't got a nice supply of who's that? Of field mice to munch on. Bless her. So she's been, I'm feeding her out the front. And the rats that you always get on farms that hang around the cattle and stuff, they're just too big for her. Have to get the ratters in, don't you? So yeah, but she's around. I see her in the hedgerow every now and again hunting birds, but the field mice, her main source of protein, just aren't here anymore. And I know that because sometimes they come in the building here and I have to put the traps out, but I haven't had any this year, so there you go. But she's around. I mean, I haven't managed to film her, but when I do, I'll try and get some on camera. But yeah, she's still good. Her son, I haven't got a name for the son yet. I was going to call him Reverb, but I think that's a bit obvious, isn't it? So we'll have to think of a name for him. He's only got one eye, bless him. He lost it in a fight. So what do you call a one-eyed cat? One-eyed farm cat. There's a joke in there somewhere. If any of you got any suggestions, let me know. But yeah, Trem and her son are around somewhere. Bless her. Right, chassis is in, knobs are on, and I was just double checking all my wire runs and bits and pieces. Now, this amp is actually going to Germany, which I've started selling a lot more amps to Germany. Oh, I've had a lot more orders from German customers, so which I guess is only a good thing. Now, you might not know this, but my mother is German, bless her. And through the process of osmosis growing up, I did pick up some German. I understand it better than I speak it. So I do apologise because I am about to absolutely destroy some German here. But, so I've just got to put this little label on. All amps must have a sticker next to its dedicated safety earth. Anyway, just doing the reverb cables. Now, I think I've mentioned this on the channel before, but these right angle plugs, the German name for them, if you are like me, which is essentially just a 12-year-old boy, extremely funny to a Brit, yet to the Germans, it's completely irrelevant, right? The German for right angle plug, and in the most beautiful way that the German like to assemble their words and put them together, is Kunststoffwinkelstecker. I'll say it again, Kunststoffwinkelstecker. And as I said, if you are just a 12-year-old boy who likes to snigger at things that sound a little bit rude, Kunststoffwinkelstecker, you can have that one for free. All done then. One Americana LP, all ready for, well, almost ready for shipping off to Germany. So chassis is all loaded in, speaker is in, reverb tank in, all done. Legal plate on the back. Just need to give it a final wipe down, dust. I do need to give it a full final play test. Make sure we've got everything exactly where it needs to be and it's doing what I want it to do. And there's no final little jobs that I've missed off or anything that we noticed is not quite right. But yeah, that is Americana LP. So it's a 12-watt amp with onboard reverb, based on late 50s Tweed amp. I said onboard reverb. It's got half power switch, which is if you pull up the tone control, there you go. That kicks that in. But it's, yeah, normal channel, bright channel, you know the score. In beautiful fawn with basket weave cloth, looking great. So that's going to get a couple of hours of playing and messing around with and tweaking and whatnot. Just make sure everything is exactly where it needs to be. But there you go, one Americana LP. Right, just a quickie on this. I've just been doing some experimenting. I pulled out the 6L6s that are in it, and I'm pretty sure the Electro Harmonics logo should be red, not white. So anyway, I thought, oh, if we're down on power, let's just try a new set of 6L6s. I mean, these aren't new, these are used, but I know they're good. One thing you'll notice about this amp, it's got grid stoppers, 1K5s, but it's got no screen stoppers. Now, I just don't get it. I don't get it because the main cause of a valve failure, or the most common cause, probably a more accurate way to say it, is over dissipation of the screen grid under overdriven conditions. So you overdrive the amp, it's the screen grid that will often over dissipate and then the valve will fail. I suspect that's what's happened with these, right? Because Jesse does not fit screen stoppers to his output valves. I'm going to do that because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that you don't. I mean, it's, yeah, you're just throwing money away at this point for the sake of, you know, some 1-watt resistors that cost a couple of pence each and saves your customer on replacing valves every now and again. Anyway, it's running on the bench. That's your output sine wave. And we're in the bright channel, tone on 12. So that's clipping. We'll just back it back down. It's just squaring off there. 14.4 volts, so call it 14.5, puts us into 8 ohms, 26 watts. Well, that's much better than the 6.5, 7 we were getting earlier, right? So, those other old 6L6s were probably just, well, not probably, definitely just dead. So I still need to go through, fix some of the other issues and go back to my customer and tell them what I found, etc, etc. But we're looking really at, the dual light needs fixing, although it's currently playing ball. Oh, that's interesting. Can't get it to play up now. Oh, there you go. Yeah, got the output back. The top end has come back as well. Now, that does make sense, because if you haven't got the power, treble frequencies are quite easy to generate, but when you do lose output in the amplifier, you will notice a degradation in tone. So yeah, I suspect his issue on that front was just these 6L6s. So good news on that front. But as I said, I'm going to go to the customer, tell him what I found, tell him what I recommend, and fingers crossed he can have this thing back in a better condition than what it arrived. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. As always, please give this video a thumbs up. All your comments and questions down below. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. If you're feeling super generous like these guys have, why not join the channel? And I will catch you all at the next one.